Welcome to Charity Champions, the podcast where we hear from inspiring leaders behind some of the UK's most impactful charities. I'm your host, Emily Formby from Charity Recruit. Today, I'm joined by Katherine Vesey, the founder and CEO of Hearts for Refugees, a community-rooted organisation providing essential support to refugees and asylum seekers on the Wirral. Kathy's journey into this work is as unexpected as it is inspiring. From the classroom to the community, from a cancer diagnosis to sparking a life-changing mission, she's built a vibrant centre serving over 120 people daily. Her story touches resilience, compassion, leadership, and the power of showing up when it really matters the most. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Kathy. Hi, Kathy. It's so lovely to meet you.
Good morning, Emily.
How are you feeling about being on our podcast?
Excited, actually. I've never done one before, first time.
Oh, well, brilliant. Hopefully you'll find it easy. We'll go easy on you. Let's start with your story then. Shall we get straight into it? Give us a bit of a background of how you've got to where we are today.
In 2017, I had a breast cancer diagnosis and I had to have some time off work for all the treatment. So I was off work for a year.
What were you working as at that stage, Kathy?
I was a classroom teacher at a local secondary school. So anyway, when I'd finished my treatment, I'd had the kitchen sink thrown at me and just did not feel ready whatsoever to go back into the classroom. I was an English teacher. It really impacted on my cognitive function and I couldn't recall what I'd gone into a room for, never mind Shakespeare and wow, poetry, etc. So I actually made a really difficult decision to resign. I didn't know what I was going to do, but just knew I needed more time to recover and feel a bit more like my old self. So that in itself is such a brave thing to do, isn't it? Because it must be so easy at that point to think, I'm just going to continue with what I was doing and get back on the same trajectory that I was on prior to this. So how brave to make that call in the first place? I mean, at the time, I didn't feel particularly brave. It's almost like I felt like I didn't have a choice. Right. Because I knew that I couldn't go in and actually do it. I didn't feel capable. So I just thought I'll have a bit of time out, and then I thought maybe one day I'll go back into it slowly, and the school were really, really incredibly supportive. I couldn't have asked for more. I had a department would contact me frequently asking me, was I interested in coming back? But as time went on, I think, reflecting back, the job of teaching, it's incredibly stressful, and I'd started to feel like if I go back into that world, I'll end up with another diagnosis. It'll come back. Really? So I started exploring different options. I was looking at all sorts of different options, going into counselling, psychology, doing courses, etc. Still had no idea what I was going to do. But anyway, while I was having my treatment, my local church had heard about my diagnosis, and they started delivering lunch to me every Thursday, and a lovely lady called Chris Branch used to come and deliver me a beautiful soup and a sandwich, all homemade, and it was on a Thursday, which was after my chemo, which was just lovely. I used to really look forward to my lunch on a Thursday. Chris was lovely. We got chatting, and she used to talk to me about a lot of the outreach work that the church did, which I was really inspired by. They were partnered up with another church about 3 miles down the road on one of our local council estates, and she used to kind of talk to me about that, and I was so inspired by the work that they did. Anyway, one day I had some children's wardrobes to get rid of, so I contacted Chris and asked if she had any families that would be interested in the wardrobes. So she sent me down to a Syrian family in Birkenhead who had just arrived on the resettlement programme. Now, I back then in 2017, the whole kind of refugee crisis was not really discussed very much. It wasn't very high profile in the media. I had felt very strongly in 2014 when the Syrian war broke out that we should be welcoming some of the refugees from Syria. And I know that David Cameron at the time was very anti, and in the end, our country, ironically, were up in arms about it, said, no, we should be taking some in. And so he agreed that he conceded and agreed that he would welcome 20,000 vulnerable Syrians into the country. So I was sent down to this family and I met Yasmin and Iham and her two beautiful children. And that was literally the seed. Again, at that point, I didn't have this idea. I've met Yasmin, I want to start a refugee charity. I went in, they didn't speak a word of English. We all sat and nodded at each other and we'd taken them in the wardrobes, and then she fed us food and tea, and it was all really lovely. But I came away and I was blown away.
Aww.
They were just such a lovely family, and we kept in contact. I took a number, and then slowly she introduced me to other families. One family were particularly vulnerable and had mum was here alone with 4 children, and 2 of them had quite complex needs. So I started helping with that family. And one thing led to another, met more Syrian families, and Chris was with me behind the scenes as well. She was helping. We decided to hold a fundraising event for all these new families that were arriving into the area, and we had a fashion show at the local church that had been supporting me, and it went really well. We raised about £3,000, and it was just a wonderful event. We had Syrian ladies and British ladies walking down the catwalk together, in their showing off their dresses, whatever they were wearing. And it was just a really lovely community event, lots of integration and lots of smiles from those Syrian ladies as well, who I think were feeling quite isolated at the time because they'd arrived in this foreign country and didn't speak the language, etc. So it was a lovely way of welcoming them. Anyway, about 3 weeks later, we went into lockdown.
Oh, really?
And I live in a place called Hoylake, which is traditionally a very white area, quite an affluent town, but very, very white. I'm driving through during the lockdown, obviously only going shopping for food, and spotted some African men in flip-flops and thought, where have they come from? And then I was soon told that 50 male asylum seekers had been dropped off at the hotel in Hoylake. We've got a Holiday Inn there. And then one thing led to another. We came out of lockdown and the community kind of came together and we started supporting them. It was clear very early on. There was lots of kind of practical needs at the beginning, but then as time went on, it soon became apparent how traumatized they were. So we ended up providing 6-day support with a drop-in centre. And that's really how it all started. And that experience working out of the hotel and providing all that support was a steep learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what an organic story that is, from literally you taking up that offering of support from the local church to taking it right through to where you are now. How did you start to formalise things? At what point did you realise there's something in this, we can, make this into a bigger organisation and support more people?
It soon became clear that there was a real gap on the world for what we were providing. So we were providing the English classes, but also just kind of some wellbeing activities, social events, opportunities for the guys to kind of contribute back into the community as well. And during that time, they were there for a year, and I mean, there was movement. People would come and they would go, but over that time, we supported 120 men.
Right.
And they were volunteering in the local churches, in the allotments, at the farmers market.
Right.
We did a big beach clean together. There was just lots of positive kind of activities going on, but also it was very much about the integration and giving them something positive to do because they're not allowed to work. And the town were quite at ease as well. There was no kind of demonstrations or there was no upset. Everybody kind of welcomed them and would say hello to them. They would walk around the streets. They used to go down onto the front on the prom and play football. There's a football pitch there. They'd go every single night of the week.
Right.
And that was in 2020, 2021. And yeah, they really settled and it was fine. So when they left, it was decided the hotel was going to close. So they literally all left overnight. But we knew we'd started something good and started something that was needed right across the Wirral. And that's when we incorporated. So we incorporated in April 2021.
So what steps did you have to take for that to happen?
Well, there's another couple of organisations on the Wirral as well that supports ethnic minority groups, not just bespoke refugee and asylum seekers. And there's a guy called Clint Agard who was quite a mentor to me.
Right.
So I used to kind of, he was very supportive and telling me that, we needed to carry on what we were doing and start getting funding in. And so there was lots of discussion about, do we become a registered charity or do we become a CIC? I had no idea about anything, I'll be honest with you. I was literally talk about, I was very, very new to anything like this.
Yes.
So anyway, with some advice, we decided to incorporate as a CIC, and we started applying for funding, and we got funding from the National Lottery Awards for All, and we got some funding from the John Moores Foundation to help pay our rent, and that literally was that really kind of got us on our feet.
Yes.
And enabled us then to start applying for other pots of funding. And now here we are today.
Now there you are. So what was the steepest learning curve that, in that journey when you suddenly found yourself leading this organisation? And as in your words, you didn't know what you were doing. You'd got your mentor on the one side. What a journey. What was what was the steepest learning curve of that?
I don't really know where to start because it was coming at me in every direction. So it was coming at me from the accountancy, finance side. It was coming at me from the marketing side. It was coming at me from the HR side. It was coming at me from the asylum side. So learning about the asylum system and the process. So I was kind of having to do all the background strategic stuff, but also then very much on the ground stuff. Getting the volunteers in and getting the right volunteers. My one saving grace, and still to this day she's my saving grace, is that I met Vicky. So Vicky came on board with me when we were at the hotel in Hoylake, and she was as passionate about it as I was, and she ironically had worked on a project with another group of Syrian ladies at the same time that I was doing my work with the Syrian ladies previously. So she'd heard about what was going on in Hoylake. She got in touch and asked if she could volunteer. So Vicky now is the other executive director. And so we've built it all together really from the incorporation. We've built it. She's been my right-hand lady. So that's basically, I wouldn't be where I am today without her at my side either.
No. Oh, well, that's lovely that you found, somebody who's equally as passionate as you are that can, and I guess, having that support network with her must make things a little bit easier. What about other key personnel within the organisation? How's that journey been?
So, like I said, it started where Vicky was the first one to be paid because I needed to get Vicky out of the employment where she was. So she was she had a job. So I needed to pay her first to get her out of that job so that, we could then get ourselves to the next stage. Looking at the timeline now, I would say probably for about the first year, Vicky was paid, I was paid a very small amount, and then the next person to come on board properly was Yasmin.
Oh, that's the wardrobe lady.
So Yasmin now is working for us part-time.
Oh, and amazing.
She is very much a key member of staff. So lovely shy Yasmin, who I met that day when I took her the wardrobes, is now fluent in English. She interprets for us all the time. She is our kind of chief caseworker.
Wow.
I can talk about her till the cows come home. About kind of the success of of Yasmin and how she's really overcome so many challenges and barriers and worked so hard to get to where she is today.
That's amazing. So what was her story prior to coming to the UK?
So she was a teacher from Syria.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then they had moved to Lebanon. And even though she was a refugee herself, she worked with the UNHCR while she was in Lebanon and saved the children, and she did a lot with the children in the camps. So she's a very inspiring woman. She's a very determined woman. She's a very clever woman. And we recently also got some funding for her to do a level 3 diploma in advice and guidance with the Open University. So she's just started her course. So yeah, I mean, she's done interpreting courses. She's done a maths and English. Yeah, she's just really worked tirelessly to rebuild her life, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And she had a good life in Syria as well. You know, before the war broke out, she had a very good life, and she's very determined for her family to have a good life here as well.
Absolutely. So what's her primary role within the organisation then now?
So she's like our chief caseworker. So she helps coordinate the drop-in. The drop-in's manic and busy, and so yes. So quite often, what like I said, she does all the casework. So when people come in and they need help with complex issues, some might be less complex, but she deals. She's at the laptop most of the time that she's in the building, to be honest. But yeah, she knows our systems inside out and back to front. We're dealing with a lot of homelessness at the moment. So she very much knows all the processes and works alongside our lawyer, who comes in once a week to help with those cases. So yeah, she takes on, I would say, the more complex casework.
What a brilliant example of that, how that lived experience, you know, can really help others in the same situation. You know, I'm sure, you know, 100%, she must...
100%, because, you know, when people arrive, they have no idea about systems. They have no idea how things work, getting to grips with the healthcare system, the DWP, education system, everything. And again, it all comes at them from so many different directions. So she's got all that lived experience now, so she can really kind of explain and help people. And it's amazing that she also speaks Arabic, because Arabic's probably one of our most common languages that we need interpreters for.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow. What a good skill set to have.
Yeah, no, she's great.
Absolutely. Oh, that's amazing. So I know when we'd spoken originally in our conversation prior to today, you'd talked to me about some hostility that you'd faced and protests and things like that. Are you happy to touch on that today?
Yeah. It's difficult, but yeah, we can touch on it, no problem.
Go on, put the listeners into a bit of context then. Explain where.
So in contrast to what happened in 2020 when the guys came to Hoylake, we're facing a lot of challenges at the moment. Although I'm also feeling very hopeful and very optimistic that those protesters are actually in the minority where our local town is concerned.
Right.
So in 2022, the hotel opened again for families.
Right.
So asylum-seeking families were placed in there. Again, there's a lot of movement. When people are put in those hotels, they're not put in there for, generally speaking, for long periods of time. So they might go in there for 6 months, 3 months, might be a bit longer, but generally speaking, it's not a permanent solution. So the families, as I said, were in there up until about, I think it was about 3 weeks ago when the last family were moved. Information was given to some of our local councillors that the hotel was going to be emptied, the families were going to be moved out, and single males were going to start arriving. Now, obviously, the social political climate in 2025 is very, very different to what it was in 2020. You know, in 2020 we were supporting guys that were one of the first ones to arrive on small boat. Whereas obviously now feelings of, you know, people are feeling very, very different towards it. The guys have started arriving. When news got out that the families were going to be moved and single mares were going to be put into the hotel, there was protests, and the protests were very much from some local concerned people, which I understand, but then we also had people from out of town that were hard, far right.
Oh, really?
And thuggish, yeah.
Wow.
So we've had several arrests. We've had quite, you know, I can only describe it as just really unpleasant, quite scary. I don't go and protest. I don't want to be anywhere near it. The counter protesters did go for a while, but it just gave the protesters something to shout at.
Right.
With their megaphones.
Right.
So the feeling was, right, stop protesting, because it's stop the counter protesting, because it doesn't work. It just makes things loud. And there were still families at in the hotel at the time, so they were in lockdown throughout the whole summer holidays from 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So anyway, the protesters have actually dwindled now. There's probably, I'd say, maybe about 15-ish that come every night. They've been there since the 29th of July, every single night, come rain or shine, they're out. So basically what a group of locals did from Hoylake that didn't like all this ugly, hateful protesting, decided to come together and do something positive.
Okay.
So Hoylake for All was formed, and we have decided that we want to create events that bring the community together, encouraging community cohesion, trying to ignore that hateful rhetoric that's out there, and just come together and be a community and be kind and be nice. So on Sunday we held a big lunch. And it was lovely, and so many people came from the community. There must have been over 200 people there.
Oh, that's amazing.
The guys from the hotel came, which was lovely. So they came for a while, and then the protesters also turned up. And
really?
in the building, all at once, we had some of those hardcore kind of committed protesters. We had our the guys from the hotel. We had lots of people from the community, and it was okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Had they come with a view to experience what was going on, or had they come with a view to cause trouble?
I don't know. I mean, they had a cup of tea.
Right.
They ate a bit of cake. They looked a little bit agitated. They didn't look particularly happy. But they came and they stayed for a short time, and then they left. And then when they left, they did stand outside, and they stood over the wall and held the flags over and stared a little bit in and looked a little bit miserable. But they didn't disrupt it, which I'm really grateful for.
Yes.
But I think, looking at what happened, I was incredibly nervous. I was really, really, really stressed out. I actually did go and have a cry privately because I was so worried about what was going to happen. But I feel like kind of on that day, you could sense the feel of community in there. You could feel the sense of love and peace in there, and it won.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really good. And what was the feedback from the people that attended? What feedback have you had since?
Like really, really positive feedback. Really positive. And I mean, I don't follow any of the protesters on social media or anything. I don't know what they've put out there, but on the main kind of Hoylake social groups, I haven't seen anything since the big lunch that they've said that's negative. All the guys from the hotel came, and they didn't say anything to them. I think, I'm sure they were feeling things, and they have a right to feel the way they feel, and they've got to be able to voice how they feel. It's freedom of speech, and I get all that. But just in that moment on Sunday afternoon, I just feel like they obviously felt that for some reason they didn't disrupt it. And I don't know what that reason was, but they didn't. And I'm incredibly grateful that they didn't disrupt it. And it was a success.
100%. I mean, it sounds like you've had the incredible support from all of the local community there, which must be quite heartwarming, and make you feel that you are doing the right things, and that the consequences are good, aren't they? The outcomes have been great from that, by the sounds of it.
Exactly. And I think Hoylake in a very unique position, because we've had single men in Hoylake before. So I think for a lot of the people that live in Hoylake, they've experienced it before. There was no rise in crime. There was no sexual assaults. There was none of what kind of people are fearful of. And it worked, and they integrated. So I think in terms of maybe how a lot of the Hoylake residents are feeling is that, yes, of course, they're going to have concerns, because we are saturated with it in the papers and by right-wing media. And I completely get that there will be a sense of unease amongst some people. But like I said, we're in a different position to maybe other towns across the UK, because we have been here before, and we've done it well before. And I think actually, if you welcome people, nobody in our community has got any control over what's happening kind of with the boats or whatever. You can protest till you can protest all night if you want. It's not going to change anything policy wise, but I've completely lost my thread of thought.
Well,
what happened?
No, you're all right, don't worry. I was going to come on to sort of talk about what advice you would give to other towns, cities in your similar situation that perhaps haven't been there and done that before. What advice would you give them at this stage?
I think it's about finding the courage to do something positive. It's small actions, and then those actions can grow. So when you look visually, when you look at a group of protesters that are waving flags, they can look quite frightening, and they can look quite intimidating. They don't think they are, but to a lot of people they are, and they have to also listen to that side of it, that it does look intimidating, that you can get onto the whole flag discussion, etc., about whether it's being used to intimidate or whether it's being used to be patriotic. It's not about that. It's about, actually, it's a small minority of people that are very loud, but those loud voices can sometimes be incredibly intimidating and make you think that everybody's feeling that way. And I am guilty of that. I get that feeling myself sometimes. I think because I see those protesters, I assume that the whole community are feeling that way, whereas they aren't. So my advice is to get in touch with Hoylake for All. We're on, there's a Facebook group for it. You can get in touch with us and talk to us about how we're doing it. We've been in touch with Epping for Everyone, to see how they're coping and how they're managing, and it's just about those small actions, positive actions, that can then start to make a difference.
It gathers momentum then, I think, doesn't it, as well? Once one small group of people start to make those positive changes and positive actions, that leads to them telling other people, and it's that sort of cumulative effect, I think, often, isn't it?
People just want some peace. People don't want to feel hate. They don't. No. Most people don't. So you've got, I think that research showed that you've got in this political climate, you've got about 20%, and you will never change their minds. You will never convince them. But then the other 80% are, a lot of people will be sitting in the middle. They're unsure. They don't know enough of the facts. They're fed a lot of misinformation. And there is a huge amount of misinformation out there. And, I hear it time and time again, the same old rhetoric about, why don't they stay in France, and why do they leave all the women and children, and why is it all men? And I hear it all the time. I've got answers to it all, but those people aren't interested in those answers. They're not.
Right. You're talking about the 20% there that aren't interested in those answers.
But if you can kind of start reaching the people that maybe don't have particularly strong opinions about it, but they do feel an unease, then those people are more likely to actually, once they start doing positive things, coming to a big lunch like we had on Sunday, they'll start to feel, actually, do you know what? I don't want to align myself with those people that are feeling so much hate.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not healthy.
No, absolutely not. And I think you're right, aren't you? It is very much around how somebody's made to feel, because you remember how you felt, don't you? Not necessarily the information, or you can read all sorts online, as you say. There's so much misinformation out there, and you can read into that what you will, but actually how it makes you feel, or an experience that you've had with somebody, is a much more lasting thing, isn't it? And you would like to think that the more people that can be around your organisation and the work that you're doing will help with that, really.
And also it's become so dehumanised that I think as well, when we had that big lunch on Sunday, because the guys from the hotel came down, even if some of those people in the room didn't speak to them, they saw human beings.
Yes.
Whereas because it's discussed so much in the media, and it's dehumanised so much in the media, they become faceless. They're not. They to that 20%, they're subhuman. Whereas actually, the majority of the population don't feel that way. They're like, they are people, and once they see them as people, then it's reassuring.
Absolutely. So with so much going on for yourself, emotionally, practically and politically, how do you stay grounded? What are your techniques for yourself?
I talk to Becky a lot. And my poor suffering husband. Oh dear. He works in construction, and I do this. So my work stories are far more interesting than his. Poor Mike. But no, I mean, honestly, he is incredibly supportive, and obviously I speak to Vicky all the time, my sister, my mum and dad. It's Christine, even though I don't speak to my friend Christine often enough, but I've got a really solid group of friends who are incredibly supportive of what I do. I've just been away for the weekend with them last weekend, and it's lovely feeling their absolute backing.
Yes, yeah.
Because again, they don't work in my sector, and they don't speak to refugees or people seeking asylum every day, so it could be easy for them to feel a bit uneasy about it all. But yeah, I think I'm just surrounded by a really solid team of people around me.
That's really lovely to hear. And it's important, isn't it, those connections that you have to keep yourself grounded, and realizing that you must feel sometimes that you are banging your head against a brick wall, that the message isn't getting through there. But I suppose times like Sunday, where you'd got all the community together, reminds you as to why you're doing these sorts of things, I guess.
Absolutely, and it gives you hope.
Yeah,
and it makes you feel like, I mean, I would say the whole climate has made Vicky and I very much reevaluate what we're doing, why we're doing it.
Yeah,
is the things we could be doing differently. I can come on to that later in terms of our future plans. It's an ever-changing sector. I mean, I cannot begin to tell you how many things we've had thrown at us over the time that we've been doing this. There was the war in Ukraine, and the Wirral were brilliant, and I think we took the most Ukrainian refugees in the whole of the Liverpool City region.
Oh, really?
So partly for refugees during that time, we were really, really, really busy. We became so busy we had to move premises, and move to a bigger premises. But what's been really great with the Ukrainian resettlement program is that they came in, we gave them lots of support. They attended our English classes, etc. But because they were welcomed in, they were provided with everything that they needed immediately. A lot of them now have gone on and they're working and they're kind of getting on with their lives. So it's been a very different experience for the Ukrainians.
And do you keep in touch with them? Are they, part of the centre now?
Some people we keep in touch with. Some go off and they go off and live their lives. We actually had a Ukrainian lady stay with us, with my family, we had somebody staying with us for 9 months.
Oh, really?
So she's gone off and she's working now. It was a really, really good scheme, the Homes for Ukraine scheme, and it really did work.
What's your strategy as an organisation then when you need to pivot at the last minute, to take on something like that? How do you cope with that? Particularly because you've not got necessarily that, a 20-year history of being in the sector. How do you cope with it?
I think in terms of Vicky and I in our leadership, the way that we'll come together. So, for example, we've got a big issue at the moment. When I say issue, a challenge at the moment, because we've got these guys arriving at the hotel in Hoylake, and there's a lot of them, and they're all new into the country. So, we have to sit down. We have to make a plan. We can only do what we can do. I think long gone are the days where we used to feel like we had to do everything to fix everything and help everybody and be with people throughout the whole journey of whatever they were doing. We have learned to kind of be realistic.
Right.
And I think realism is key. And I also think as well is managing expectations of people is really key as well. So if you can manage those two, it'll work.
Do you mean expectations of the people that are wanting your support, or expectations of the staff or stakeholders?
No, of the people that we support, really. Because again, if you think that a lot of them will be incredibly vulnerable, frightened, and they may end up wanting to be handheld.
Right.
Too much. So within our mission statement, it's all about empowerment and breaking down those barriers so that we do help and we do support. But, and we will 100% give a handhold if it's required. But equally with a view to making sure that we can let go of that hand and that they can kind of
take
have that independence.
That's a really good strategy, I guess, isn't it? So what's next for Hearts for Refugees? What does success look like going forward?
I mean, it's always about funding. I mean, I spend a lot of time writing funding bits. Some we get, some we don't. We want more funding for more staff. I've got a big bid in at the moment for that. We have 7 staff.
Right.
3 have got lived experience. So wanting to kind of increase their hours and get them on board a bit more. But I think a big thing going forward is going to be about community cohesion and bringing communities together.
Right. And how are you going to achieve that?
how that looks at the moment is at its infancy. In fact, I've got a meeting next Tuesday about that, so I can let you know after Tuesday what our ideas will be. But it'll probably get a whiteboard out and start jotting down ideas. But it will. I mean, working alongside Hoylake for All, taking the ideas that are being done there. Do you know what the greatest hook for integration is? Food.
Oh, really?
Food brings people together. It's a shared. It's something that we all share. It's something we all like. I'm sure it will centre somehow around food.
Well, I look forward
to
hearing
a shared
all
language.
About it.
Yes. Football's a shared language as well.
Yes. If it was me, I'd stick with the food. Oh dear. So one final question then, that we ask all our guests. what's the one lesson that you've learned on this journey so far that you would want to impart on our listeners to take away?
Probably got two things. So first is surrounding yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
You know, my team, it's not just the staff. We've got 7 staff and they're all fab and great, and we all, you know, it runs really smoothly. But we couldn't do what we do without our volunteers, and we've got 50 plus volunteers working at Heart for Refugees. Yeah. So one of our staff members is a volunteer coordinator. So we need somebody in post to look after all those volunteers. So it's very much about appreciating the people you've got around you, but also being able to manage those who aren't the right fit. That's been one of my biggest challenges is on how to do that. And yeah, I find it really difficult. However, we've got there. You know, we did have our challenges in the early days. We've had the odd person that's come on board into the organisation that wasn't the right fit for whatever reason. But we managed it, and we've come out the other side, and we're really good now at our recruitment. We have really robust recruitment processes.
How do you deal with that when you bring somebody in that doesn't have the same motivations or isn't working in the same way? What's the strategy?
I mean, it's difficult when it's volunteers because they're paid. So, I mean, yes, you can just get rid of them, but also you've got a reputation to protect, and you want to do the right thing. You know, we're an organisation that is there to help people, and you know, you want to. I know for our volunteers, they get as much out of volunteering as they do giving.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
But then we have had the person that's come along that has. If you volunteer for an organisation like ours, you're passionate, you have strong opinions, you know, and sometimes those strong opinions can maybe conflict with maybe the way that we're running things, or they're not happy with something. But we've learned over time that I think I'm quite good now at bringing people in and having that open conversation with them in a very non-confrontational way. But equally, sometimes you can't manage people, and they can be quite unpredictable. And I've just learned really quickly just to block. Blocking is the best way. But you know what? We haven't had a lot of it at all, and we have been really lucky. And like I said, when we recruit people, you know, we do interview them. They come and meet Vicky and I. They'll talk to Bridget at length. We find out what skills they've got to bring into the organisation. Does that match with what we're doing? And so yeah, so
good. And what was the second piece of advice? You said you had 2.
I think the one was the surrounding yourself with the right people, but also looking after those people as well.
Right.
Yeah. So what we do with our volunteers very much is we have a big we had a big Christmas party. We had a volunteer wellbeing day in just only like a couple of weeks ago. We had a bit of a lockdown for 2 weeks before we came back after the summer. So we had a wellbeing day to kind of get everybody in the right mood for
how nice.
You know. So yeah. It's appreciating them. It's looking after them. We get funding to pay volunteer expenses, but a lot of them won't take expenses. They won't charge us for driving here and back. So what we do instead is provide those kinds of holistic wellbeing activities. We have a day once a year, which is a bit like an AGM, but not an AGM, where we kind of tell them where we're at and what our plans are, keeping them informed, and yeah, just really making them feel a sense of belonging.
Yes. Well, I think that's really critical, isn't it? That communication piece and making them feel as though they are belonging to something. Those are the key things, and not just with volunteers, actually. I think it's a life lesson for anybody, isn't it? Yeah. That open communication and that sense of belonging.
And obviously, having come from a teaching background, I've worked with people that, you know, I would never want to work with ever again. You know, you can work in environments where there's lots of scrutiny, where you know, just favoritism and or, you know, people sucking up to managers or that kind of thing. Whereas I feel in here that we just have a quite relaxed environment, and I do feel, especially since we put Bridget in post as the volunteer coordinator, the volunteers are really well looked after now. I hope they agree when they listen to this. But they're far better looked after now than they were when it was just Becky and I trying to manage everything.
Oh, well done, Bridget. Oh, well, Kathy, it's been so lovely to share your story today. Thank you for being so honest. It's so inspiring to listen to, and I'm sure that the listeners will feel exactly the same. We'll include all the links to Heart for Refugees and the amazing work you're doing in the episode notes. And as I always say, if you're enjoying Charity Champions, don't forget to follow and subscribe on your channels to find out what further interviews we've got coming up. So until next time, thank you so much, Kathy, and we'll see you again.
Thanks, Emily.